The fourth stimulus check, there's a big petition to try to get this fourth stimulus check going out the door. It looks like the $3.5 trillion stimulus or budget plan that Nancy Pelosi is trying to put together. Looks like they're going to try to sneak in the American Families Plan. And inside of that, they're going to extend out a lot of the programs that are available right now. A lot of the extensions that should have been extended out that were ending, those look like they might be pushed into this $3.5 trillion budget plan. And I'm going to cover a lot of those details for you in this video. Now, there's good news for a lot of different states. It seems like a lot of new states are coming on board of getting more stimulus out the door. And that's good news because every state received the $350 billion total was the amount that was received. That's good news for a lot of people in these different states. Texas has $2,000 payments going out to those that are trying to return people to the classroom. That's going on in Irvine. A lot of different cities in Texas are actually using the stimulus money to turn around and pay those people in that area. Tennessee is sending out $1,000 checks to teachers and educators. Michigan also the same thing, $500 hazard pay for teachers. And then Georgia, $1,000 checks for teachers and part-time $500 for teachers. Now, Florida is going to be sending out teachers $5,000 checks and administrators, but also frontline workers, EMT, police, firefighters. They're also going to be getting the $1,000 checks, and those should be going out, I think, over the course of the next couple of weeks. New York just stepped up and said they're going to have a $2.1 billion fund for undocumented workers in that area. Not sure why they specifically targeted that group, but that seems like what New York is doing. New Mexico has $5 million set aside for some citizens in that state. Maryland looks like they have $500 for families and $300 for individuals. Colorado is sending out $375 checks for people in Colorado. Now, California is one of the bigger states, sending out $500 and $600 to people in that state. If you made less than $75,000 a year, you'll be getting a stimulus check. The great news is about California is that ITIN numbers are available to get a stimulus. So if you don't have a Social Security number and you have an ITIN number in the state of California, then you receive that payment. So that's good, definitely good news. Now, a lot of these stimulus payments are getting to people through bank accounts, and they're also getting through checks. If you do have the ability to get a bank account, try to do that, because then you'll be able to get that you get your payment a lot faster. Hopefully in the future they'll have some type of FedNow coin, which I think they're talking about. They'll have that to where they just drop the money right into your app. I don't know how quickly they're going to get that out, but seems like they should be trying to get something out there because of the way the competition is for the stable coins that is happening right now. So there is this big $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill. This is in the House of Representatives, and this is something that Bernie Sanders is really pushing for. He's trying to get this reconciliation bill passed quickly, try to get it out. There's about $3 trillion in there. Not sure why, Bernie seems like he wants to just take money and just continue to spend it. The problem is that if the government takes in less than it actually spends, there's a big deficit there. They have to figure out how to increase that deficit. So if you bring in $1 trillion and you spend $8 trillion, there's a huge deficit in there. And so Bernie's looks like he's going to try to push this again, push the envelope, getting more stimulus. This is a big it's an infrastructure plan that's going to try to get bridges and roads and all that working again in a lot of different areas. This would put a lot of money back into different jobs, different businesses. Also, the child tax credit, if they can get that inside of this new bill, this would extend the child tax credit out through the year 2025. So that would be a pretty big bill to get that out. If you haven't seen already, there is a stimulus going out to those that do have children. If you have children under the age of 6, you're getting a $300 check. And then if you have the children between the age of 6 and 17, you get a $250 check. They want to make this child tax credit permanent. If they can slip it into this new $3.5 trillion budget plan, I think they'll get it in there. Some of the other things, the eviction process has already been taken off. Looks like the U.S. landlords have already evicted 500,000 people from March of 2020. So some of the bigger states: Indiana, Missouri, New Mexico, Delaware, and Connecticut. So these are the states right now that are sending out eviction processes. That has ended, and they might extend that out to try to get that program to allow evictions. I mean, at some point they really have to end it. They can't just continue to not just allow people to live rent for free, because people do have to pay for those. There's landlords, there is investors, all of that own those properties. So they have to be able to get those people out and get somebody in there that's going to generate them income.
First, your colleague, Joe Manchin, just explicitly told me repeatedly he will not support your $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill. He wants to see something more in the ballpark of $1.5 trillion. Is that acceptable to you?
No, it is absolutely not acceptable to me. I don't think it's acceptable to the president, to the American people, or to the overwhelming majority of the people in the Democratic caucus. Look, we worked with Senator Manchin to pass the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, which was enormously consequential and helpful to working class families in getting us out of the economic disaster that befell us as a result. I believe we're going to all sit down and work together and come up with a $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill, which deals with the enormously unmet needs of working families. You know, we've got to lower the cost of prescription drugs for people. We've got to expand Medicare to include dental, hearing aids, and eyeglasses. We have to maintain the $300 direct payment we're giving to working parents, which have lowered childhood poverty in America by 50%. And I'll tell you what else we have got to do. The scientists will tell us that we got a few years left before there will be irreversible harm to our planet if we do not address climate change. And the truth of the matter is, Dana, as you may know, many of us made a major compromise in going from the $6 trillion bill that we wanted, supported by the overwhelming majority of Democrats, down to 3.5. Mm-hmm. And the last point that I would make on this, I know that Senator Manchin worked very hard on what's called the bipartisan infrastructure bill, $550 billion of new money to rebuild our roads and our bridges. What we have worked on is working both of those bills in tandem. They go together. And it would be a really sad state of affairs for the American people, for Congress, if both of those bills went down.
Do you think that's possible, that that could happen right now?
Yeah. I don't think it will happen. I mean, I think, look, this is a very difficult issue. What we are trying to do in this bill is more significant for working families than any bill probably since FDR and the New Deal. I mean, we're talking about expanding Medicare. We're talking about making sure that no working family in America pays more than 7% of their income for childcare, making pre-K universal and free, putting a huge amount of money into affordable housing, creating millions of good-paying jobs, home health care, you name it. This is a consequential bill. It is hard to put a bill like this together. At the end of the day, I believe we will.
Okay, and I want to ask you about more of the substance in a second, but the other thing that Senator Manchin is opposed to is the timeline. Chuck Schumer wants to have a draft of this reconciliation bill done by Wednesday. The House Speaker committed to holding a vote by September 27th. He said that's not going to happen, full stop. Are you willing to give it more time?
Well, I mean, a few days here or there, it doesn't matter. But there is a sense of urgency. And the sense of urgency is that we live in a country today where the wealthiest people and the largest corporations are doing phenomenally well, while working class people are struggling all over this country in terms of health care. You know, you got 90 million people uninsured or underinsured. People can't afford to pay prescription, can't afford to send their kids to college. Kids are leaving school deeply in debt. You got almost 600,000 people in America who are homeless today. And you got the climate crisis. You know, Oregon is burning, California is burning, Siberia is burning. You know, people are dying in floods in New York City, unprecedented rainfall. There is a sense of urgency, which I think the American people understand. And what they want is finally, maybe, just maybe, the Congress of the United States will act for them and not just for the wealthy campaign contributors And the rich and the powerful, who, by the way, are pouring huge amounts of money, the companies, the insurance companies, fossil fuel industry, huge amounts of money in trying to defeat us.
So let's talk about the op-ed that you wrote. You said you cannot support the $3.5 trillion bill until you get, quote, greater clarity on why that amount is necessary. Most of your colleagues have been trying to give you that clarity over the past couple of weeks since you wrote that. Your party leader, Chuck Schumer, says he's moving, quote, full speed ahead with this package. Will he have your vote?
And that's fine. He can. He will not have my vote on 3.5, and Chuck knows that. And we've talked about this. We've already put out $5.4 trillion, and we've tried to help Americans in every way we possibly can. And a lot of the help that we put out there is still there, and it's going to run clear until next year, 2022. What's the urgency? What's the urgency that we have? It's not the same urgency that we have with the American Rescue Plan. We got that out the door quickly. That was about $2 billion, $2 trillion. And on top of that, all the things we've had with the CARES package, everything leading up to that. So we have done an awful lot, and there's still an awful lot of people that need help. But you have 11 million jobs that aren't filled right now. 8 million people are still unemployed. Something's not matching up. Don't you think we ought to hit the pause and find out the vulnerability that we have, Dana, right? We don't know what happened with this. It's awful coming back the way it is with a vengeance. We don't know about inflation. We know it's running rampant right now. I can tell you in West Virginia, inflation's running rampant. And on top of that, the challenges we're going to have, geopolitical challenges. Shouldn't we be prepared?
So I want to ask you about a lot of that, but are you saying it's the price tag, it's the timeline, both?
It's the urgency. Do we have the urgency to do what they're wanting to do in such a quick period of time?
But can you be specific? Okay, let's talk about the dollar sign.
Yeah.
Do you have a specific number in mind?
Here's a number you should be getting to. First of all, I have agreed to get on to the reconciliation because that's the time for us to make financial adjustments and changes. I thought the 2017 tax code and tax law, the way it was changed, was very, very, very unfair, and it was weighted to the wealthy.
So what's the number?
And the bottom line is what the number would be what's going to be competitive in our tax code. I believe that the corporate rate should be at 25, not 21.
But what's the overall number for the budget bill?
I think that you're going to have to look at it and find out what you're able to do through a reasonable, responsible way.
So then how do you know that it's not 3.5?
It's going to be at 1, 1.5. We don't know where it's going to be.
So you think ballpark 1.5?
It's not going to be at 3.5, I can assure you. But with that, whatever it is, once you have a competitive tax code that you can compete globally, and then you should look at what the need is. What's the urgency and the need that we have?
And I want to get to that, but just because this is the thing that people consume. Do you have a ceiling?
My ceiling is this: the need of the American people, and for us to basically take in consideration inflation. Mm-hmm. No one's concerned about the debt. Our debt as of Friday was $28.7.5 trillion. And we're not even talking about that. No one's talking.
So you just said 1.5. It sounds like 1.5
I'm just saying
trillion
that
is your
basically,
number.
I've looked at the numbers. If we have a competitive tax code from a non-competitive, it doesn't help the working person that was done in 2017, that's in the 1.5 range, okay? If that's where it is, shouldn't you be looking at what does it take now to meet the urgent needs that we haven't already met?
Okay, so let's talk about how this would be paid for. The White House Chief of Staff, Ron Klain, told me on this show last week that you are, quote, very persuadable on this budget bill because he says it will be paid for. It won't add to the debt. It won't add to inflation.
Well, if you're paying for it with inflated numbers from the standpoint, is the tax code, the numbers that they're wanting to pay for it and the tax changes they want to make, is that competitive? Does it keep us competitive or not? I believe there's some changes made that does not keep us competitive.
Meaning don't increase taxes on corporations?
No, I want to increase taxes on corporations. I've spoken to corporations.
So
I want the wealthy to pay their fair share. But if you're up higher to the point to where you are that can be competitive globally, then it's going to be counterproductive. Everyone's looking at this in a whole complete different way than I think maybe I am or other people, or the people are just keeping quiet. The bottom line is, do we have the urgency to spend another $3.5 trillion right now? The most urgent thing that we have to do is get the bipartisan infrastructure bill that's gone left unattended for over 30 years, deferred maintenance throughout every part of our nation. That's the one. The president went out and campaigned on that. That's his bill. We worked it in a bipartisan way, got 19 Republicans to vote for it. That's the bill that should go out immediately.
Okay.
So the fourth stimulus check is, there's a big petition for this. There's a giant 3.5, or there's about 2.8 million or 2.8 million signatures right now that are going to try to get this monthly payment set up to where you can get a $2,000 check and then $1,000 payments. This would be to anybody that qualifies for this, and this is I don't know if this is going to be on top of the child tax credit, but this is the petition they're trying to sign. Now, this isn't really a law. This is something that Congress still has to create these bills and get it over to President Biden. I think that they will have some type of reoccurring payment set up, just because of the fact that they're trying to go to Congress. They're trying to get all these Democrats and all of these politicians to come together to try to get some type of reoccurring payment in there. They could do it very easily. Nancy Pelosi could put together a budget plan that would allow people to get a monthly payment. She could do that really quick and get that out. The issue is, I think there's so many of these politicians that are trying to spend so much money, they're just not bringing in enough money in order to generate that type of income. And if you just continue to tax everybody and tax businesses, it does hurt the economy. Economies can't really grow when there's so much tax burden on those economies. 56 House Democrats, 150 economists say they're trying to urge President Biden to get a direct payment, get a monthly payment sent out to everybody. This could be in this $3.5 trillion budget plan, a $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill. The infrastructure bill is already passed the Senate. There wasn't enough Republicans for that. It has to go over to the House. They have to vote on it. But Nancy Pelosi is playing a little hardball. She's saying, well, we're not going to vote on the $1 trillion package until you guys vote on the $3.5 trillion budget bill. Going back and forth, using politics, I guess, to get this done. They were really, when they had the last president there, they were really adamant about getting more stimulus out to everybody. Now they seem to be not wanting to get more stimulus. Some of the benefits were they were going to maybe possibly drop some of the student loan debt. I know President Biden said that up to $10,000 would be forgiven. That never happened, so it doesn't look like he's gone through on that. Gone through on that plan for him. There is a big push for senior citizens, SSI, SSDI, to get trying to get a $1,400 payment. They're talking about the inflation rate is getting out of control right now. So the inflation now is about 6 or 7%, and then you have the increase in Social Security is only 1.3%. So there's a big difference, a big gap in between those. The wages of the benefits are not really exceeding the inflation rate that's going on right now. Now this is a group of, it's a senior citizens league. They're trying to get lawmakers to pass this $1,400 stimulus check, trying to get more money out. If you are SSI, SSDI, you can file your returns. The Treasury is still sending out payments to everybody every week. They're sending out payments to bonus checks. They're sending out payments to the plus up payments. So if you had a good year in 2019 and then you had a not so good year in 2020, then what they'll do is they'll get you caught up to that $1,400 payment. If you never received any of your payments, you can file your returns. And when you file your return, there's a recovery rebate credit section in there that allows people to let the Treasury know that you missed your first two payments and that you should be getting those. And that if you fill out the recovery rebate credit section, they'll send those payments out to you. That's something that's good. A lot of people just don't know about that. I think it's section 30 of the free filing tool. When you file returns with the Treasury, then there is a section on there that you can fill out the recovery rebate credit. That's going to allow you to pick up the $1,200 checks, and then you have the $600 checks, and then the $1,400 checks. So if you have any questions about any of the stimulus, go ahead and drop those questions in the comments below. This is your daily stimulus check update information for today.